A dark screen. Silence thick enough to feel like grief settling in the throat. Then, her voice cuts through, a whisper soaked in sorrow but floating on fury. If love was real, why was I left to be humiliated in front of the world? That single line vibrates through living rooms, hotel lobbies, apartments lit by television glow across 4 continents. No music, no filter, no edit. The screen fades into a wide shot of a courtroom in New Delhi, but this isn't just any courtroom. This one is wired tight with broadcast cables, rimmed with microphones, covered in mounted lenses. It's a stage forced wide open for every eye watching. Welcome to the world's first live-streamed divorce hearing of reality TV's most controversial couple, Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh. It's not just a trial. It's the final season, unfolding in real time. Across 47 countries, the numbers rise. In Los Angeles, it's 4 a.m. Families brew coffee just to tune in. In Lagos, the street cafes are projecting it on outdoor screens like a World Cup match. In London, subway ads blink. The divorce, uncut, today at 9. Everyone is watching. Jenny sits still in the wooden chair on the left side of the bench. Her fingers don't fidget. Her eyes are locked on the judge's seat, still empty. But underneath, even through the screen, you can feel it. The ache, the shake. The storm she's holding in her mouth like she's afraid to let it free. Sumit sits to her right, adjusted with the same nervous charm the world once fell for. Neatly dressed, calm on the surface. But every few seconds, he fixes his cuff, scratches under his collar. It's not sweat. It's guilt that won't settle. For years, millions followed this love story, two strangers, continents apart, bound together by a force messy enough to make for perfect TV. From secret phone calls to emotional abandonments, lie after lie cut between snippets of wedding dresses, temple ceremonies, translator apps, and screaming matches, until love started to feel like a performance. But today, no camera crew controls the cut. This is unedited. This is Judgment Day. The state has allowed cameras for the sake of public interest, but entertainment is not the goal. Whatever happens here will live permanently carved into the internet, far beyond replay buttons. The judge enters. Short, composed, but with eyes like locked steel. Her presence hushes every screen around the world. Even TikTok goes silent. Once on the bench, she adjusts her papers, nods toward the court officers, then turns her eyes to the couple so many think they know. This courtroom confirms the case of Slatten versus Singh. The matter concerns dissolution of marriage, allegations of televised character defamation, emotional abandonment, and irreversible fracture of public trust. A pause, not for effect, for truth to settle. These proceedings are authorized for international broadcast under full truth clause. All recordings are uncut. All witness verification is authenticated. Jenny doesn't blink, Sumit doesn't speak. Far beyond the court walls, live comment sections flood. Messages in Hindi, English, Arabic, Portuguese, some cheering, some begging, some typing things they'd never dare say aloud in real life. They know the story, or they thought they did. The love-struck American grandma who gave up everything for an Indian man hiding the truth from his family. The tears, the walkouts, the forgiveness, the secret wedding, and again the secrets. Always the secrets. But what they didn't know, what producers were never allowed to show, was what Jenny saved in silence. Every time a scene aired, and she looked like the fool she wasn't. She was biting down on things she chose not to reveal, to protect him, to protect herself, until protection became betrayal, and love became court documents. The judge turns to Jenny. Your representation has filed for full separation with supplemental motion for spousal conduct review. We will begin with testimony. Then a peculiar rhythm enters the air, the clink of a video transmission initializing. The judge looks straight ahead. We will now hear from the first surprise witness for the petitioner. A large screen placed near the bench flickers to life. Connection secured. A face fills the screen. Female, not familiar to most viewers, but Jenny's posture shifts dramatically. Her lips part, eyes freeze, Sumit recoils. The woman speaks, crystal clear. My name is Rhea Kapoor. And I was in a personal relationship with Sumit during the early months of his legal marriage to Jenny. Every screen watching inhales. Even the judge tilts her head, eyes narrowing, but no one speaks. Because something much louder has arrived. The silence of betrayal, unraveling on live television. The courtroom didn't gasp. It held its breath. Like a glass cup filled to its brim, one tremble away from spilling. Rhea Kapoor's voice didn't crack. It sharpened. I wasn't just aware of his marriage to Jenny, I was part of his life during it. He told me it was all for the cameras, that he didn't love her anymore, that the paperwork was complicated. Jenny didn't flinch. Not at first, but her neck tightened, lips pressed hard together, and the vein in her jaw flared with every tick of the clock. The intimacy of betrayal was palpable. This wasn't emotional storytelling, this was emotional discovery. Sumit remained still. Jenny's fingers trembled as she reached for a glass of water. Her lawyer leaned over to whisper, but Jenny waved him off. Her eyes were locked on the screen, her mind years behind, pulling together the fragments. Ria continued in front of the whole world. There was a trip to Bangkok. He said it was part of a TLC shoot with the production team, but he wasn't filming, he was with me. And then the screen changed. Courtroom staff flipped to exhibits submitted by Ria's legal team. On display, for billions to screenshot, were deleted Instagram posts, a tropical drink, a shadow that matched Sumit's profile, a hand wearing his wristband, background music of Sumit singing karaoke in a low-lit bar. Dates matched the exact timeline of Season 7 filming. The gallery behind the bench tightened in their seats. The emojis under the screen lit up red. Comments poured in like outraged whispers echoing off courtroom walls. Jenny blinked. And then, only then, did she look over at Sumit. Not a word, not a sob, just long, bitter silence. Her heart was breaking, but her fire wasn't. She whispered so low it barely registered. You lied. Even when the cameras were down, you lied. Sumit didn't meet her eyes. The judge hesitated. For a second, her rigid professionalism cracked. There was human disbelief crawling over her face. She adjusted her robe and spoke with the dryness only judges learn to use to stay neutral in the face of pain. These posts, have they been verified? Yes, Your Honor. Metadata confirms origin, timestamps, and archive history. Screenshots were recovered from Instagram servers through official legal request. Then all hell broke loose. A new screen lit up, a video call coming through. Objection, Sumit's lawyer snapped. Pending call request, the judge said. And then her image appeared, unmistakable, unapologetic, loud as ever. Angela Deem. Half of America's jaws hit their living room floors as the infamous cast member waved her cigarette with one hand and snapped into the mic with the other. I told y'all from day one that boy was slippery. Jenny gave everything for that man, and she didn't deserve to be treated like this. The courtroom camera shook slightly from audience laughter, discomfort, and gasps. The judge raised her hand. You are not on the witness list, Miss Deem. Angela's camera started glitching, but she yelled through. Let me speak, Judge, let me speak. Or you're no better than the TLC puppets. The judge signaled for mute. Angela's sound dropped instantly, her face vanishing as the call was disconnected. Jenny stared forward, no longer horrified, just hollow. It wasn't embarrassment anymore. It was confirmation. Confirmation that her instincts were right. Confirmation that somewhere between public fame and private fallout, she was always alone in that marriage. Sumit still hadn't spoken. No apology, not even denial. The judge turned. Mr. Singh, do you have anything to say? He cleared his throat, looked down. Personal matters were complicated during filming. What happened in my private time? Jenny stood up. The problem is, there wasn't a private time. Because I let cameras into everything. Because I thought we were honest on both sides. Her voice cracked a little, but not from weakness, from restraint. Every day I defended you, to my family. To strangers, to the producers. I said they were twisting your image. And the truth is, you didn't need help destroying me. An urgent whisper passed between the judge's assistants. Then a folder, a USB drive, handed to the bench like fragile evidence. The judge reviewed the note in silence. This court has received a new discovery disclosure from Jupiter Productions. It contains archived footage not selected for public distribution. These cuts are sealed, unaired, and believed to include off-screen behavior from both participants. Sumit's head shot up. His hands clutched the chair. He leaned to his lawyer fast, whispering, panicked. Jenny didn't blink. Sumit's whisper grew louder. If that gets played, it's out of context. We agreed. The judge didn't wait. All parties will remain until these entries are reviewed. Court stands in recess for 1 hour. On return, the footage plays. The lights dimmed slightly in the courtroom as the monitor clicked to life. A playback watermark glowed faintly in the corner of the screen. Production archive footage, not for broadcast. No soundtrack. No commentary. No edits. Just the truth, raw, cold, undeniable. On the screen, Jenny was seen dragging her suitcase through Indira Gandhi International Airport. Her face was flat, tired, her mouth clenched shut. She wiped her face twice when she thought no one was looking. It was 2 a.m. I'm going back to Palm Springs, she'd said quietly to one of the crew members at the time. He said he needed space. His cousin's wedding. I haven't even met the cousin. Doesn't matter, does it? 1 minute of silence followed in the courtroom as the footage rolled. Then, the true cut began. Sumit, not at a wedding. Not grieving, not secluded, not buried in cultural obligation. He was comforting someone, not just anyone. A woman much younger, much closer to the rumors Jenny had always denied were true. They sat on a cafe rooftop. The city lights twinkled behind them, a moment that would have been romantic if it weren't soaked in betrayal. She rested her head on his shoulder. He rubbed her hand in slow, quiet patterns on the table. No wedding music. No family ceremony. Only the sound of drinks being poured and a man telling lies with every soft gesture. Jenny covered her mouth. Her shoulders were stiff, like something inside her had just locked into place. Not pain, not disbelief. She'd moved past disbelief long ago. This was devastation confirmed. In silence, Jenny looked down to hide what was rising, tears shedding straight onto the courtroom floor. The kind you can't brace for. That night, she remembered it too well. The plane ticket she booked herself, the empty apartment, the messages never answered, the fake reassurances. She'd cried face down into her own pillow, breathing into the mattress so the cameras wouldn't hear. Everyone said she was dramatic, said she was insecure, said she was controlling. And now the screen didn't lie. He lied. The judge leaned forward slightly, not out of curiosity, but with the uncomfortable realization that this was not what anyone expected to see. Sumit's lawyer made an immediate objection. Context, Your Honor. This is non-narrated, out-of-sequence footage that could mislead the entire court. The judge raised a hand. This court doesn't need narration. The silence was clear enough. Sumit looked stunned, then angry, and finally hollow. Like the version of himself he built during the show had crumbled, and sitting in the ruins was the man he never wanted revealed to the world. Jenny's breakdown wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was dignified in a way only years of hiding pain could create. She held her chest and whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "That's what I looked like. When I trusted you." The gallery behind her was frozen, not a shuffle, not a cough. Comments online flooded in. She's crushed. He's fake. She knew. They edited her to be crazy. And then, the tide started to turn. People began questioning the narrative they were fed. How much of Jenny's story was buried under bad production choices? How many moments were sliced apart to humiliate her, lift the drama, make her someone to mock? The judge spoke again. This court will demand clarification from show editorial regarding intentional suppression of footage relevant to character and truth. We will have to go to the source. A clerk handed her a small card. A name written in pen. Subpoena request acknowledged for Jennifer Mayers, segment producer for 90 Day Fiancé, Happily Ever After, seasons 5 through 7. Jenny lifted her eyes for the first time in 10 minutes. That was the producer she once confided in. The one she trusted with every teardrop, not knowing those moments would never make it to screen. The judge raised her chin. The witness has been contacted. She is willing to appear for testimony under full immunity. Sumit's lawyer let out a breath that sounded like defeat. The courtroom, and the world watching, knew exactly what this meant. The editors are about to speak. And the truth is no longer in Sumit's hands. The producer took the stand with no mic check, no introduction, no grand camera movement. Just a stiff chair, a glass of water, and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. Jennifer Mayers, segment producer for seasons 5, 6, and 7. The woman who was there for every tear, every fight, and every apology that the world consumed like it was a Thursday night drama. But now, under oath, she wasn't cutting the narrative. She was living in it. The judge asked her to state her role, her timeline, her proximity to the couple's off-camera moments. Jennifer's voice trembled at first, not with fear, but with the realization that what she said next would not only end careers, it could turn an entire fanbase against the network that raised it. She looked straight ahead. Yes, scenes were manipulated, not created from thin air, but reshaped, rearranged, stretched, emotional reality made into entertainment reality. The courtroom didn't react at first, but Jenny did. She stood up, her voice rising, sharp, stripped of the softness the world had become used to mocking. You told me none of it was real. You told me you were just protecting the storyline. She pointed at the producer, veins raised along her wrist, anger rising with every inhale. You told me what I said that night would never be aired. You told me it made Sumit look bad, so you deleted it. You let the world think I was the one going crazy. Security moved forward. Her lawyer tugged gently at her sleeve, but she pulled her hand away. Why didn't you let people see what he was really doing? Why didn't you let me be seen for me, not for someone desperate and delusional? Jennifer didn't look away. Because, she said slowly, scraping the truth out piece by piece, If they saw who he really was and who you really were, they would have stopped watching. Gasps hit like a string of firecrackers. Sumit's lawyer stood up immediately, voice flying over everyone else. We object, this is character assassination, this is slander without evidence. The judge's voice sliced through the room. If you interrupt again, I will issue a contempt warning. Silence. Jennifer swallowed hard and continued. They made us cut the airport footage. The scene where Jenny sat outside for 3 hours because Sumit forgot to pick her up. They made us tone her English down, said it made her look too intelligent, too composed. They cut her text messages. They added music over her crying, made it funny. We framed her like she was unglued. Because we needed chaos. Jenny clutched her necklace like it was the only thing keeping her standing. Her lawyer whispered something into her ear, but it didn't matter. Everyone watching, across homes, phone streams, already knew what had happened. The audience online didn't hold back. Network betrayal. She was a plot, not a person. I can't believe I laughed at her all these years. The judge folded her hands neatly on the bench. Careful, controlled. Miss Mayers, do you understand the consequences of what you're confessing? Jenny turned back toward her quietly, breathing hard. Jennifer nodded. I do, and I don't care. I'm tired of editing pain into punchlines. The judge gave one slow nod, then turned to the clerk. This court will now enter lunch recess. 1 hour. But before standing, she added something unexpected. In light of today's openness, the court will allow one round of public questions, submitted electronically by active verified viewers. Submitters must be using real names. Most supported question will be read during this afternoon session. The gallery stirred again. Jenny's fingers shook. Sumit finally tightened his lips in frustration. Across devices, phones were vibrating with live prompts. What do you want to ask Sumit or Jenny? The response? Immediate. Flooding. Over 80,000 questions in less than 5 minutes. And topping the list by a landslide, the question waiting for them on the docket. Was there ever love at all? A faint ding echoed across the courtroom, the sound of live results being submitted to the judge's private monitor. The audience couldn't see the screen, but they saw her expression as she scrolled through the selections, face locked in a state somewhere between exhaustion and disbelief. Then she looked up. This afternoon testimony will be introduced by the public's highest-rated question. The cameras panned back slowly to Jenny and Sumit. No director cues, no lighting change, just two people sitting 5 feet apart, now surrounded by millions, typing, judging, streaming. Not one person breathed easy. The judge read the question aloud. Was there ever love at all? Jenny didn't move. Sumit blinked once and shifted in his seat like the chair suddenly didn't fit him anymore. And then the next screen lit up. Production Archive, 2022, the judge said calmly. Segment, testimonial setup, unused. The screen flickered before landing on Sumit, half-lit by the glow of cameras during a confessional setup, unaware, uncaring that his words weren't for the edited cut. He was laughing, not with joy, but in that awkward, guilty, uncomfortable way that doesn't quite hide the blade it carries. She really thinks this is a forever thing. Jenny, she's like a mother sometimes. You know, she's not used to our world, she's older. And sometimes I act like I'm okay with it, but come on. It's weird, we all know it's weird. His face curled into a grin. Sometimes I tell her things like, you're so cute when you get worried. But really, it's like handling a kid with a temper. Or a grandma, I joke she'll forget about it by morning. He chuckled. The clip cut off. The room went still, like it had run out of air. Jenny's hands dropped to her lap, her body stiff, not from surprise, but from confirmation. So I was a joke, she said low, trembling. For ratings, her voice cracked. Not high or shrill, but flat, the sound of all dignity trying not to shatter under public cruelty. The judge didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. Because the silence hummed with outrage being typed by furious hands around the world. Comment sections blew apart. Disgusting. He said that laughing. This feels like emotional abuse. I defended this man for years. Jenny didn't wipe her eyes. She didn't hide her face. She lifted her chin, her voice catching midway. I spent holidays alone, in a foreign country, waiting for a ring he kept promising and a family that kept saying no. And he was laughing about my age. Off camera, she turned to him for the first time. You let me look insane on national television, while you called me a grandma behind closed doors. You didn't stop them, you helped them. You fed it. Sumit opened his mouth to speak, but the judge cut across him. You will only respond when addressed. Her next motion was quiet but gutting. She nodded to the clerk. Another thumb drive was inserted. We now enter supplemental exhibits, communications presented by Jenny Slatten. These include journal entries, private emails, and direct messages submitted for emotional impact review. The screen loaded. Text messages appeared. White background, blue and green dots. Jenny, Saturday 1:42 a.m. Are you awake? I'm not okay tonight. Can you please call me? Sunday 3:11 a.m. I waited all weekend. You said you'd call. Tuesday 10:24 p.m. Why are you online but ignoring me? Email footage scrolled down, showing draft after draft of unexpressed pain. To her daughter, never sent. I know it seems like I've lost myself. Maybe I have. But I keep thinking, if I give him one more month, he might show me he cares the way he used to herself. Maybe this heartbreak is the price I pay for choosing myself the first time in decades. Her vulnerability beeped on the screen, one lost message after the next. The silence between each entry louder than anyone's defense. She sat with her arms crossed now, shielding herself not from judgment, but from collapse. Then a court technician raised a hand, signaling the next incoming live feed. It's a respondent-side witness. Unexpected. But confirmed identity. The judge narrowed her eyes, signaling to proceed. The screen went black, then faded into an older man's face. Wrinkled, stern, familiar. He adjusted his glasses before nodding once. I am Singh, he said, voice calm. Sumit's father. Jenny froze. Sumit shot upright, but it was too late. Because another truth was entering the room, unexpected, final, and not aligned with anyone's script. Singh didn't blink as his image settled on the screen, his eyes weighted down by more than age. His face, known on television mainly for stern glances and quiet disapproval, now carried something heavier, regret. He adjusted his posture, folded his hands, and spoke into the courtroom with a calm sharpness that pierced the silence. We begged him to stop. Before he destroyed her, he said. Before he destroyed us. A slow ripple washed over the room. Sumit's face twitched, not from guilt, but discomfort, like the way someone flinches when truth is louder than their defense. Anil didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I told my son that if he loved her, he should protect her. That if he didn't, he should let her go. But instead he used her, and used our silence. He knew we would never accept it, so he turned it into a soap opera. A long, painful show at her expense. Jenny's lips parted slightly, not in disbelief, but because she had been waiting, burning, aching for someone in that family to admit it. The world had always wondered about the cultural tensions, the screaming families, the layers of shame and secrecy that clung to every frame, but they had never seen this. A father admitting failure, not just of a son, but of a family legacy. I do not blame Jenny, Anil said, voice cracked, fragile around the edges. I blame us, I blame myself. She should have been protected, not paraded. The courtroom didn't move. Even the online chat stream slowed, like people were trying to process something too real for commentary. Then, without needing any prompt, a flashback reel played. Not through the court's order, but edited quietly by producers, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of timing. The wedding. Jenny in her soft pink sari, tears streaking her cheeks, trembling hands holding marigolds while Sumit smiled for the camera. There hadn't been a family there, not really. No aunties, no uncles, just a camera crew and two people surrounded by the absence of acceptance. Jenny's voice echoed from that moment, aged by pain. I waited 9 years for this day. And now that it's here, I feel like I'm doing it alone. Back in the courtroom, her expression didn't change, but her body straightened. No more shielding herself. She looked over at Sumit, her voice calm. Glass smooth but sharpened with truth. You didn't marry me because you loved me. You married me because you wanted out of their grip. I was your rebellion, not your partner. The words hung there, between them, like a curtain finally being dropped. Sumit lowered his eyes. Whether it was shame or strategy remained unreadable. Jenny took a small breath. I tried to convince them I was worthy. I made excuses for you. I buried my pride for yours. Again and again. She glanced up at the screen where Anil remained. Their eyes met for a full second. Quietly, Anil said, I'm sorry. It wasn't loud, but it landed like thunder. Somewhere, you could hear someone sniffle. A whisper of someone crying. The judge held her gavel midair but didn't bring it down. This wasn't law anymore. This was grief. Years of it, finally spoken. Then she turned gently toward the petitioner's table. Her voice returned to its formality. Miss Jenny Slatten, would you like to proceed with your testimony through counsel or submit a written statement? Jenny didn't need a lawyer to speak now. She stood up gently and faced the judge. I'll give it myself, live. The entire courtroom froze. Cameras realigned. Jenny nodded toward the production director near the exit. No filters, no framing, no edits. I'll speak to the world, direct. Let everyone hear what I should have said years ago. And just like that, the judge gave a single nod. The chair was moved. The microphone pointed directly at her. Jenny walked up to the platform slowly, gripping the truth in her palms, not as a weapon, but as a final offering. The cameras focused. The producer called audio in. Their silence now belonged to her. Jenny stood at the microphone like someone walking barefoot onto broken glass, carefully, but determined not to turn back. No script, no talking points. Just pain she'd carried in silence for years. She steadied her breath, lowered her eyes for a moment, then looked right into the camera. I was 61 when I gave up everything. My job, my friends, my grandkids. Even the security of knowing what tomorrow looked like. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The fragility in her tone was more powerful than any shout ever could be. I fell in love with someone who told me he'd fight for me. He told me we could build a life, and I believed him. I believed in the version of us the world was watching. She paused, lips trembling. But what the world saw wasn't love. It was a lie, dressed up in lighting and subtitles. Sumit didn't move, his head slightly bowed, as if even he didn't see this version of her coming. Jenny's voice shook, but she didn't stop. I lost my daughters. Not because they hate me, but because they didn't understand. I didn't give them answers. I didn't show them strength. I kept saying, give me time, he just needs time. The courtroom was silent, except for the faint crackle of a microphone too close to heartbreak. I waited months in India, alone, while he told me he was handling things. I lied to my family. I lied to the people who supported me. I stuck by someone who didn't even have the courage to stand beside me when it mattered. Her hands gripped the podium, but her voice carried like someone finally peeling off a mask. And when I cried on camera, they added music. When I begged him for honesty, they edited in laughter. When I asked him if I was enough, they cut the answer out. Sumit blinked, not fast, but slow. The kind of blink where you know the weight behind it is guilt. I've been called desperate, stupid, naive. People laughed at me, made memes out of my face, turned me into that old woman who chased a young man across oceans. Her tone broke for a second, emotion slipped, but she caught it before it could collapse. You know what I was? I was in love, and I let it destroy me. A pause, nothing but the thumping hearts of the world behind screens. Then she lifted her head higher, fire flickering behind her pain. They called it reality TV. She said, eyes burning into the lens. The only real thing was my heartbreak. Instantly, live streams exploded. Tens of thousands of viewers sent hearts, tears, messages like prayers. She deserves peace. Forgive yourself, Jenny. This is stronger than any episode. In that moment, across countries, across comment sections, Jenny wasn't just a cast member. She was a woman reclaiming every piece of herself that never got a close-up. The judge stayed silent. Even she understood, this wasn't the moment for law, it was the moment for truth. And then, when the room let itself start to breathe again, Sumit stood, without waiting for permission. I want to speak now. The air snapped back into tension. The judge turned, surprised. Jenny cut in before she could answer. No, she didn't yell, she didn't shake, she simply stared at him. You've manipulated every scene until now. You had your chance every season, every camera, every cut. I'm not letting you rewrite this moment too. The judge glanced between them. Sumit opened his mouth, but no words came out. And the room braced, because what came next could unravel everything all over again. Sumit stayed standing, but even without saying a word, it was obvious he didn't have control anymore. Not of the room, not of the story, and definitely not of Jenny. His voice came out thin, strained, like someone reaching for emotion instead of feeling it. I never wanted to hurt her, he said, eyes darting between the judge and the nearest lens. But everything was complicated. The pressure, the culture, the cameras, my family. He paused, eyes low, his fingers tapping his thumbs like a metronome trying to find the right rhythm. Jenny sat still, arms crossed, unreadable. I was depressed, Sumit added, voice softer now. I was losing myself trying to be what everyone wanted, a husband to her, a loyal son to them, and a storyline for the people watching. He tried to scan the room for sympathy. Tried finding a way to make pain his side too. I didn't know how to love her and not lose everything else. The judge raised her head slightly, but didn't interrupt. I loved her, I did. But I was suffocating in a world where no one accepted us. Not my parents, not my friends. Half the time, not even the crew. He exhaled hard, as if working his body into something bigger. There were moments I considered disappearing. Not leaving her, leaving it all. Moving someplace where nobody knew me. No fans, no lights, just peace. Then he hesitated, extended the silence a second longer than natural. And during our breakup, I got an offer. A solo series. TLC approached me about it. Said I had my own audience, that I could build a brand, tell my own journey after Jenny. A slight stir in the gallery. A producer near the edge of the courtroom fixed his gaze, jaw clenched. But I said no, Sumit said quickly. Not because I didn't want it, but because I wasn't sure if I was walking toward something, or just running away from guilt. Jenny didn't blink. Didn't smile, her body stayed frozen. You didn't build a brand, Sumit, she said coldly. You built a mask, and now everyone's watching you try to keep it from falling off. Sumit struggled to keep composure. I never lied about the pressure, he insisted. You think I had a choice. You think anything was easy when your mother threatens to disown you every week and the whole world's watching your every move. The judge, silent until now, cut in sharply. Mr. Singh, you've spent considerable time explaining your emotional state, but this court is not only deciding emotional liability, it is weighing intent. She leaned forward, hands folded. Tell me, were your actions rooted in love or performance? Sumit opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Across the globe, viewer polls lit up in real time. Thousands answered the same question in silence. Was he ever in it for her? Or always for the camera? The judge sat back slightly, then turned to the bailiff. This brings us to the next motion, cross-examination of the final presented exhibit. She looked over at the production lead sitting in the viewing area. The full, uncut off-air edits, the rough dailies. Storage drives still in possession by TLC and Jupiter Entertainment. All camera roll footage, pre-edited dialogue, and raw metadata racks. Sumit's face turned pale. Every word, every whisper they filmed but didn't air, the awkward silences, the real fights behind manipulated ones, the way he looked at her when the lights were off, could now be entered into court. The truth wouldn't come from what was shown. The truth would come from what was cut. The courtroom was so quiet, the hum of the projector felt louder than it should have. A clerk handed over a plain black USB drive. No label, no daker. But what it contained weighed more than any piece of evidence before it. This drive, the judge announced without flair, contains 6 hours of uncut, timestamped video, direction notes, and unused scene segments. Submitted by request following testimony from the segment producer. She nodded for playback. The lights dimmed. And suddenly, the curtain was pulled back on everything no one was supposed to see. The first clip began, raw footage from an apartment scene Jenny and Sumit filmed during their second season. No music, no color correction, no subtitles, no edits. Jenny sat on the edge of a couch, speaking calmly, slowly. It's hard, she said in a voice barely above a whisper. Being here, alone, most days. I don't go out much. I don't speak the language well. I don't even know which neighbors hate me. I think most do. She wasn't crying. Not then. She was composed, confused, hurt but restrained. Sometimes, she continued, I wonder if I'm becoming smaller trying to keep him. Like I've shrunk my world down so much I barely exist in it anymore. The clip went black. Second clip began. Same day, different scene. This time, Jenny was sobbing, not hysterically, but silently. Sitting by a window, her hand clenched into her hoodie, her back to the camera. Direction notes appeared beside the screen in red ink. Too quiet, doesn't hit hard, reshoot with confrontation. A new version of the same scene followed. Jenny standing, now loud, waving her hands, voice raised. This was the version that had aired. This was the version the public saw. The crazy foreign grandma, yelling again while the poor, patient Sumit tried to breathe. The original moment, where pain lived in her silence, not her volume, was never shown. Next clip. Another dinner scene, where Jenny calmly expressed to cameras that maybe she'd made a mistake moving across the world. She expressed it with clarity, maturity, regret. Direction note said, trim down, makes her too logical. Doesn't fit storyline. Add transition to insecurity shots. The edits weren't just dishonest, they were weapons. If she's too mature, the producer had once said, audiences can't laugh at her mistakes. Jenny didn't look at the screen now. She stared forward, stone still. It wasn't surprise anymore. It was recognition. She'd lived it all, now the world was finally seeing it. On the feed, more cuts rolled. A tearful journal entry never aired. A loving comment from Sumit, removed to sell a cold front. A warm embrace between them in a temple, cut out so the next argument would feel more savage. The courtroom gallery shifted in their seats as though watching a familiar story turned upside down. The judge folded her arms slowly. Reality television has rules, but when those rules rewrite the dignity of real people, the ground underneath those rules cracks. Sumit didn't breathe. Even his lawyer wasn't scribbling anymore. The final video lit the room in blue light. Sound reset. Clip ended. Gone was the Sumit audiences had known. Gone, too, was the narrative of Jenny the joke. What remained was a question bigger than apology. What do you do when love is reduced to a product, pain trimmed into punchlines, and truth buried beneath cuts made for ad breaks? The judge reached for her folder. Gavel untouched, face unreadable. She shuffled the final pages of her ruling, placed them neatly in front of her. But before she could speak, the livestream's view count hit a historic high. Because now, the truth wasn't in the judge's hands. The final verdict belonged to everyone watching. The room stood still as the judge looked over the courtroom at two people who had once fought the world for each other, now at opposite ends of the same battlefield. Years of love, distance, and camera cuts now condensed to what would be a single ruling, delivered without emotion. She adjusted her glasses, and in a voice low, firm, without drama, she read the sentence that everyone already knew was coming. This court officially grants the dissolution of marriage between Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh. She lifted her eyes, pausing. While the emotional damage is evident on both sides, this court recognizes a profound imbalance in impact and intention. The emotional weight fell harder on the petitioner. Jenny closed her eyes for just a moment. She didn't smile. There was no victory in surviving this much pain, but there was release. The judge continued. As such, the court awards emotional damages on moral grounds, intended not to compensate, but to acknowledge. Jenny whispered something to her lawyer, then sat up straighter. I decline the financial award, she said clearly, voice unwavering. I don't want anything from this, not money, not pity, not closure dressed up in a check. From the back of the room, a few heads turned. Even the audience, watching from thousands of screens worldwide, froze at that moment. Because this wasn't about winning anymore. It was about walking away with the one thing Jenny had left herself. The judge nodded, slowly, respectfully. Noted, the petitioner refuses damages. This ruling stands in public record. Jenny reached for her purse. That small, floral pattern thing the audience had probably seen hang off her shoulder in more episodes than they could count. She stood up and looked forward, not at Sumit, not anymore. He was no longer her story. Sumit didn't speak, didn't stand. He stared downward with that look people wear when they realize silence is no longer a defense, it's a sentence. On the livestream, over 800,000 comments flooded in before the verdict even finished echoing. She deserved better. She should have been protected. I was wrong about her. Never watching again. The court clerk's voice began listing standard wrap-up procedures. Archiving files, sealing statements, but no one was really listening now. Jenny walked slowly, her steps steady across that polished floor, each one peeling away another layer of the identity she'd been stuck in for too long. She wasn't the crying woman slumped on a bed anymore. She wasn't a caption. She wasn't the punchline of a tweet. She stopped just before leaving the camera's final frame and turned back, not to the judge, not to Sumit, but to the lens. To all of them, the ones who judged her from couches, who rewound her heartbreak for fun, who quoted her worst moments like they were punchlines. Her eyes were soft but clear. You can recover from a broken heart, she said. Her voice shook only slightly. But trust, that's what dies in silence. The room stayed silent. No music, no cutaway, no edit, just her, and then she walked out. No applause, no sad montage, no dramatic fade to black. Outside the courtroom, the world reacted the only way it could, with waves of sorrow, guilt, and stunned silence. Sumit remained seated, staring into nothing, while somewhere in the universe, what they once called love unraveled its final thread. Because when pain finally speaks for itself, everyone else loses their right to the mic. And now, it's your turn. Do you believe they ever loved each other? Or was it always a performance waiting for an audience? Tell us what you saw. Tell us what you felt. Type it out because some scars only heal when they're witnessed.